Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the show. My name is Deanna Yates, and you are listening to episode 275 of the Wannabe Clutter-Free podcast. On today's episode, I am going to be doing a Q&A. I love doing these when we get to these kind of rounder numbers. It's very arbitrary, I know, but I did one at 250, I did one at 200, and I thought I would bring another one to you at 275 because you seem to like them as much as you seem to like hearing them as much as I like recording them. And I do apologize. They are painting the outside of our house today. So if you hear some noise, that is what's happening. If you're watching this on YouTube, I feel like I'm in a horror movie. All of our windows are plasticed up. They have taped them all off. They are all covered in plastic. It is not my favorite place to be today, but I bring this to you every week, so I have to get this recording out, and today is the day. So one of my favorite things about what I do is getting to help you all in your home, either whether it's organizing or decluttering, which we know we have to start with decluttering, right? Because we cannot organize chaos and we can organize chaos, but we cannot organize our clutter. There is no point in holding on to something if it's not something you want, love, use, need anyway, right? Why store it away? It's not helping anyone. And it is just, I know a lot of you hold on to stuff out of guilt. We'll get into that. I'm sure that's one of the questions today. But let it go. Let it be used by someone else. If it's an heirloom, give it to someone in your family and let them use it. If you don't care about it or no one else in your family wants it, it's not your job or responsibility to hold on to it. Okay. So we are going to talk about getting into those questions, the questions I get asked all the time. I have some really fun ones this time. I tried to get some that were a little different, right? We don't want the same questions over and over again. If you are looking for other questions, go back and look at those other episodes. I will link them in the show notes so you can see. I don't want to keep repeating the same answers to the same questions, but if things have changed over time, I do want to bring that kind of information to you. But let's dive into it. I don't want to waste too much time with the preamble here. Let's hop into these questions. All right. This one comes from Sarah. Let's see. Hang on. Let me get my Instagram up here because some of them came in through Instagram messages, and I want to make sure that I give credit to the right people. That was Aaron. Okay, perfect. All right, this one is from Sarah. She said, "Hi, Deanna. I've noticed that even after I declutter, I still feel guilty. I told you we were going to get into guilt. I still feel guilty about letting things go." She says, "It feels like I'm almost erasing a piece of my history or wasting money." Wow, both of those are two very common and very deep things. So how do you move past the guilt when clutter isn't just stuff, but it's tied to your identity or to past choices? All right, first off, Sarah, please know you are not alone. Guilt when it comes to decluttering is very, very common. And I think what happens is today's day and age, right? It's so easy to amass things. And we also are surrounded by temptation. We are surrounded all the time by marketing messages, making us feel inferior. So we buy something because we think it's going to make us feel better or it's going to solve a problem we have. And then oftentimes it either doesn't live up to the hype or it doesn't solve the problem, or the high of feeling good fades really quickly, right? I'm sure if you're listening to this, a lot of you are nodding along. And so we have to understand that we can separate the things from who we are or the desires we had when we bought that thing, who we were when we bought that thing, what we wanted when we bought that thing, and knowing that we as humans grow a lot over time. All right, so let's answer the first part, right? You feel guilty about letting things go. Okay, so no, I mean, a lot of people feel guilty about letting things go because they're concerned about the resources of the planet, right? They're concerned that it's going to go to the landfill and it's just adding to the problem and a lot of that. Well, we as humans have been, and people that are being marketed to, the guilt has been passed on to us from the corporations that are making all of this crap that we're buying every day, right? They have passed on that responsibility to the consumer. So first off, just know that you are not the root cause of the problem, right? So you throwing something away doesn't mean that that thing wasn't going to end up in the landfill in the first place. So there's that part. Also, as soon as we buy it, as soon as it's made, actually, not when we buy it, but as soon as it's made, it's going to end up in the landfill eventually in some way, shape, form, or another, whether that's tomorrow because it's cheap and it breaks, whether that's in 10 years because it wears out and someone's used up all the utility of it, whether it's in 5 years because it got stored in a garage and never got used, and heat and time are the enemy of especially plastics, rubber bands, um, any of that stuff. Have you ever had a plastic thing that you like, a toy from when you were a child, and you pull it out and it's like sticky, right? Time, heat, the elements are not good to things. So if we're not going to use them, like I was saying in the intro, we should let them go so other people can, because they are just going to continue to deteriorate. So, number one, know that as soon as something is made, it's going to end up in the landfill, whether it passes through your possession or not. And so it's okay to let it go and alleviate that guilt of it ending up in the landfill and say, like, hey, maybe this is going to go to somebody who could actually use it, somebody who's going to enjoy it, somebody who's going to actually make it worth the idea or the fact that it was actually created in the first place. So let's let go of that guilt. Then let's look at erasing a part of your history. Is there another way you can keep those memories of that part of your history, right? Maybe it was a family heirloom. Is there a way you can journal about it? Take a picture of the item. Like if it's something that's cool and you like it, but you just don't have the space for it, or it really just doesn't fit with your lifestyle, or the vision you have for your life, or you just don't have the space for it. I think I already said that. Take a picture of it and create a little homage. Like, I had Gretchen Rubin on the show, and one of her books talks about this, like creating little vignettes or little shrines to the things. And so maybe that's something you can do with your item, is like, maybe it's a table that, or like, okay, here's one. Maybe it's an old piano. Nobody in your family plays the piano, but it's a sentimental piece from your family. You don't want to let it go. Could you take a picture of it? Could you, and then display that picture? Don't just take a picture and have it sit on your phone to never be seen again. Take a picture of it, print it out, frame it, and put it on a bookshelf, or put it somewhere where you will see it. And then every time you see that, you're going to have a moment of like, oh, and you'll feel good about it. In that case, could you also donate it to maybe a school or to somebody that wouldn't be able to afford a piano? And then feel good about the fact that you're blessing someone else's life, right? So now your history isn't stuck inside your home. You're actually passing on that history and creating a legacy to help other people and bless other people's lives. And then the last one you talked about was wasting money. And yes, there are people that say, if you look around your house, everything you see was once money you had, right? I feel like that's a really guilt-ridden way to look at our stuff. I don't want to guilt us into our stuff. Like, there was a reason you bought the stuff you have. And I've gone through lots of different versions of my life. I call them different chapters. I am definitely a book. I've had lots of different chapters, lots of different lifetimes. I've lived in, I think if you know my story, I think you know I've moved like 16 times in my adult life. So I have lived, and not just down the street moved. I have moved across the country. I've moved out of the country. And every time I feel like my life is reinvented a little bit. It's not all the same. Every time I move house, there's always a piece of furniture that doesn't fit quite right, or something that we need to change, or there's different configurations, there's different layouts. Our daughter's room was smaller this time, so now she has a loft bed instead of the regular bed she had before, so we could maximize the space in there. So letting go of stuff, and I can't feel guilty about the money I spent to make my last home feel like the place we wanted to be. Because at the time, that was all I knew. I didn't know we were going to be lucky enough to get the house we're in today. I didn't know that when I was in that place before. So I made our last townhome feel like home for us. That was our home, and we made it what it needed to be for us at the time. Now, this current home has a dedicated office space for me, which is great. I mean, technically not really dedicated, but this space is now, I've claimed it, it's my office. So I've set it up to work for me on a regular basis, that I can sit down here every week and feel you know, energized and excited to get down to work and talk to you through this podcast and through all the things that I offer. And, if I was stuck in all the money I wasted, which I've dealt with this a lot too, right? I'm very frugal. I like to maximize the use of my things, and I will repurpose and I will redo a lot of things. But sometimes things just don't work, and it is okay if you need to buy new things to work in your space. I bought some lamps to hang up in this office area because when I'm working at night, I want more light in here, right? I'm not going to work by just the light of my computer. That makes me feel awful. So I want light in here. I want it to feel like a place where I will bring you my best version of myself so that you are going to get the information you need and the help you need to start living the life you want to be living. So I think if we can look at that from those different perspectives, one, let go of the guilt of the waste and try to move it on to someone else who can use it. And if no one else can use it, that is okay too. Like don't have to sit in that guilt. It is okay. Number two, if it's a part of your history, let it go and let that be your legacy and moving on and passing that history on. And then three, if you feel like you wasted money, know you did the best you could in the time you had. At that time, with the information you had, you made the best choice you could. And if right now you feel like that was a terrible choice, then you can say, you know what? What was it about that? What was happening at the time that I bought that I felt like I needed it? And can I take that lesson and move forward so I don't make that mistake again in the future? All right, Sarah, I hope that helped you. All right, we're going to take a quick break to hear from this week's sponsors who allow me to bring the show to you for free every week. And when we come back, I've got 3 more questions to answer for you. All right, welcome back. I do apologize again if you are hearing the noise. I'm hoping that my recording software is working overtime and getting out the spray paint noise that you are hearing. It is literally right outside my window. And because our home is old, the windows kind of suck and you can hear everything. So they're getting decluttering advice today, which is really fun. And you're getting to hear them spray my house or paint the house. All right, let's go for question number 2. All right, this one is from Erin. And Erin asked, I'm going to pull it up over here. Where are you, Erin? All right, she said this is probably a silly question, but she wondered if I would be able to do a podcast about saying no to social requests and saying no to friends. Well, I'm going to answer her question here, but then I also will probably look for someone, for a guest who can speak more to this, because I do think this is an interesting topic that a lot of people don't normally talk about. So her question is this: I know it's such a silly problem to have. I have too many friends, too many circles of friends, and I find I'm always booking walks, dinners, coffees, movie nights, etc. So she's booking a lot of the social dates. She said, I am doing way more social things a week than I'd like. It's because I'm invited to see people and people want to see me, and a lot of friends see me as a priority in their life and that we're that close. And she said they are, but now she's close to so many different people that she's just feeling burnt out. And she said, look, I know I'm really blessed. Like, basically the idea was like, I know I'm really blessed. And so I feel silly asking this question, but it's really starting to affect me. And I don't feel like I have enough time to myself. And so I said to her, like, look, this is not silly, right? If it's causing stress in your life, then it's definitely something you need to address. And I feel like clutter is not just the stuff in our homes. I did an episode on the social side of clutter where having too much stuff generally makes us pull back from having those social outings, pull back from having people over to our home. And she does seem like, so Erin, it does seem like you're going out a lot. And so maybe having a group of people over to your house will be good. I'll tell you exactly what I suggested to her in a second. But it's interesting because not only does the physical clutter hinder some of these relationships for a lot of us, sometimes our calendar clutter, right? All of these activities and expectations and things we're doing becomes so stressful and overwhelming that we just kind of shut down, or it's hard to deal with all of it, right? There's only so many hours in the day and there's only so much time. And we all say that people are more important than things. And I 100% stand behind that. I'm not saying go buy things and not go out with these people. And I'm not even saying go shopping with these people. what I do think, though, is that there has to be a balance in every aspect of our life, whether that is how much stuff we have in our homes, um, the things we do on a regular basis that add up to this like overwhelm, how many things you're thinking about, the project you're working on, the things that fulfill you in life, why you feel like you're even on this planet, right? All of these things uh, are affected and can become cluttered, whether that is going to manifest just in our minds or whether it does show up in the physical realm through our stuff and vice versa, the stuff affecting our mental and spiritual realms. So, one creative suggestion I had to her was to establish a group, right? So, an outing with a specific date that they'd meet on every month, week, whatever it works for her. So, when I lived in Iowa, we had a group. And I don't know if the group's still together. It's been quite a while since I lived there, but we called it Gaggle, and we would get together once a month. And it was just a set meeting, and it would invariably be at different people's homes or we would meet at restaurants. It was very relaxed and casual, but we all knew it was a group of women. Most of us were moms, but we all knew that we had the standing date. And it was so great because no matter what, you didn't have to. I mean, yes, you would send out a quick reminder like, hey, this week's Gaggle meetup is going to be at this person's house, or we're going to meet at this restaurant this week, just so everyone knew where they were going. But you didn't have to say who's in, who's coming. You didn't have to keep RSVPs unless it was at a restaurant. We'll be like, hey, we have about 15, we think we're going to have about 15 people. So if you can make it, let us know, because then you could have the RSVP for the restaurant. But people would bring, bring something to drink and something to eat. And we would sit around and share. And it was potluck style and it was super casual. It was just a wonderful way to make sure that you still had those friendship connections. So that is my suggestion to Erin. I said back to her specifically, to have a standing date. So maybe it's every third Tuesday. We'll meet up at this restaurant, park, switch off hosting, etc., so that the planning part is already taken care of. Because sometimes that mental hurdle of planning something or having to come up with suggestions or dates or ideas is really taxing. And so that way, if people are free, they can meet up. And if they're not, well, then that's okay too, because, there's always the next month. So that way, you also don't have to feel pressure to show up, but you can show up. Now, then my next part to her was if they're from lots of different groups, would she be able to commingle those groups? Would she feel comfortable commingling those groups? And not a lot of people do or don't, right? It's kind of 50-50. Like some people are all in and they're like, heck yes, I want everybody I know to meet each other and get along. And some people are like, you know what, my this group and this group, they're not really the same, right? Like I have one group that's I don't know, I'm just gonna make things up, guys. I've got one group that's a improv comedy class that I've been trying to get out of my shell, and so that's one group. But I'm also in a book club, and the one group is like a whole mix of different people, and the other group's moms, and I just don't feel like those two groups will meet. Okay, fine, no big deal. You don't have to commingle them if you don't want to. But if you want to, or if you can, and you do feel like they would all get along, then that's a great way too, is just commingle the groups and say, hey, every third Tuesday, let's go out, right? Also, if you want something that's a little more intimate, a little more formal, maybe. Formal is not even the word. It can totally still be casual, but something that's a little more small group, right? A little something, like I said, intimate is probably the best word to use. Maybe you could host a dinner once a month with a small group of people, and those could be from the different aspects of your life. So it would be really fun to invite one of the women from a book club. We're going back to that example. One of the women from the book club and her partner to dinner, plus somebody from your comedy improv group and their partner or a friend. And maybe you have a church group that you go to as well. And then you can invite 2 people from that to your home. And now you have 8 people. If you are with a partner, you have 8 people that are coming to a dinner. It could be at your home. You could do it once a month, and it's just different people, and just kind of mixing and matching the different people from your group would be really fun. It's kind of like a capsule dinner party. But it's just super fun to go ahead and mingle those people together, because you never know what connections might form, or, how different people would get along. And so that's one way too, to kind of take away all of the different meetups that and social activities she's doing on a regular basis, and helping you, Erin, bring them into more planned activities for you, that gives you some breathing room in your calendar, and gives you some space to actually just either chill out and be on your own, do your own things, and go down your own path, instead of having to always feel like you're meeting up with everyone else. All right, I hope that helped. All right, our next question is anonymous, and it is about digital clutter. So let's see. She said, I've got to admit, digital clutter stresses me out even more than the piles in my house. My phone is constantly buzzing. She said she gets a lot of group texts, her school reminders, work emails, social media notifications, and it feels like I spend more time managing my home than living my life. I've tried muting things, but then I feel guilty for missing messages from friends and family. Do you have any advice for setting digital boundaries without feeling like you're letting people down? And I did a whole episode on digital decluttering last week. So please, I will link in the show notes to that. That was episode 274. So I will link to that. But my quick advice would be to start unsubscribing from things that you don't need, so you can turn off individually notifications for apps and things like that. Be selective on what you do allow to come in. Maybe you also do some bundling of the notifications. I know in my iPhone, I can set things to come in at a certain time of day, so I'm not getting constant reminders, but 2 times a day, I can get kind of a bundled notification. So like late morning and late after, or like mid-afternoon, so that it gives me time to respond to those without feeling like I completely ignored it or got off track or didn't even acknowledge it. So the next tip is to create your list of favorites. And then you can set up your do not disturb notifications appropriately. So maybe your favorites do consist of the school phone number, so that if your child is sick or they need to get a hold of you, it will come through. It might be the main work number at your office. It might be your spouse. It might be your parents. Might be your children if they have cell phones, obviously, but their number's in there. Anybody that you would want to, in an emergency, need to get that phone number or that phone call or text message, make sure those are on your favorites list. And then in your do not disturb notifications, you can say allow calls from favorites. And that way, hey, I've taken care of the major people, the main people in my life that I need to get information from immediately. And anybody else, kind of the second tier, I can check those a couple times a day. And then also set out times where you say, okay, I'm going to dive into my deep work or the work that needs to get done in the morning first thing. And I'm not going to rush straight to my email, because if you go to your email first thing in the morning, it becomes your to-do list. And you will constantly feel like you're putting out fires and you're responding to things that maybe are not as important. They are still important. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's not as important as the main work you need to get done. And so if we can get the main work done first, then set up times to check our emails a couple times a day. Also, for someone like me, checking social media a couple times a day, that is more like my email inbox now, more than ever, with DMs coming in on Instagram and things like that. So I make sure that I do that a couple times a day, but I do not have notifications from Instagram coming into my phone. That is not what I need to spend my time doing. So make sure you're setting up those boundaries and you're saying, what is it that's really important to me? What do I need to make sure that I get back to immediately? Those are the things we let through. Just like when you're decluttering, you want to set up your main whys. Like, why is it important? What is this room useful for? What is my home useful for? What are the feelings I want to have? Setting it from the intention standpoint first, and then filtering based on those intentions works all the time. Okay? Every time, all the time. Make sure you start with the intentions and filter from that. All right, let's take another quick break. And when we come back, we will get into our final question. So, this final question comes from Jennifer, and she says, "Hey, Deanna, I feel like I've fallen into the trap where instead of actually decluttering, I'm just buying more solutions." And I am quoting the solutions. By this, she means coupons from Target, baskets from Home Goods, drawer dividers on Amazon. She said, "You name it, I've tried it. But the truth is, I think I'm just hiding my mess in prettier containers. How do you tell the difference between real organizing and just disguising clutter?" Well, Jennifer, I think it comes back to that, what I just said before the break, which is starting with intention. So if we understand how we want to use our home, who's living in our home, what are the things we actually need, and then we can say, this is what I want my home to be used for. This is how I want to live my life. This is the purpose of this room or this space or basically my whole house, right? Because we can look at our whole house as one container, and then a room as another container, and then the cabinet or closet as another container, and then the drawer as another container, and then the containers inside that drawer as another container. And so if we start from the macro piece where we think of like the big picture, how do I want to feel when I walk in the door? Who lives here? What kind of things do we actually need? What activities are we into? What are what do we like to do? How is our home actually function? How does it set out? What are the different, things we need in order to fulfill the purpose of each space? That really helps. And when I say that, sometimes people don't quite understand what that means. But if you look at your kitchen, right? Your kitchen and your bedroom, let's compare the two side by side. Your kitchen is where you're going to store anything you need to make or eat food, right? That's it. That's the place where you nourish yourself. So you're going to put your coffee maker in there. You're going to put your pots and pans in there. You're going to have all your utensils and dishware and food is going to be stored in there in the pantry. And all of the drinks and all of those things are going to be in your kitchen. Likewise, in your bedroom, you're going to have your bed, your pillows, blankets, your books in your nightstand so you have something to read before you go to bed. Maybe you do have your charger in there for your phone, but you're going to have a lamp on the nightstand. You're going to keep your clothes in your bedroom unless you have a separate wardrobe room. But that's where those two, they have very different purposes in your life and in your home. You would not store your pillows in your kitchen, and you're not going to store your cutlery in your bedroom. That doesn't make sense. So when we're looking at how do we get past just disguising clutter, we can start by purpose, the purpose and the use for our things. What kind of things do we need? And then we can say, okay, this is the space that I have to store the things that I need to cook, right? This is my kitchen space. I only have so many drawers and cabinets and doors and, counter space and things like that. And wall space if I needed to buy another cabinet or something to contain stuff. But at some point, I run out of space. And if it doesn't fit within those parameters, I need to start making tough decisions. I need to put on my big girl pants and say, hey, I don't have enough space for a giant, professional chef set of pots and pans, which is fine. I love my caraway pans. I use them all the time. I only need the 4, and I have not had a problem with that yet. I love it. So those are actually stored on top of my kitchen, my refrigerator, which meant I actually got an entire cabinet back, which is now where I can put my crock pot and my toaster and things like that so that I can free up more space. I don't have to worry about stuff on my counters as much. And I love that. Visually, I know that I am a less is more kind of person. I love when things are clean and cleared off, and it makes me feel more calm and peace. That might not be a problem for you. Some people don't mind if there's stuff all over their kitchen counters, and if that's you, that's totally fine. There is no right or wrong way for these things to work. You just have to pick what works for you and the people that live under your home. All right, so I think I hopefully answered the question between how can we start on the big macro level? Now let's dive in a little bit deeper. So how can we tell a difference between real organizing and just disguising clutter? How often do you use the things that are stored in the bins? If you put something in a bin and you don't touch it for a year, you're just hiding clutter. You're just putting it away and tucking it away because you're scared to let it go, or it brings up different emotions for you. And that is okay if you're just starting. And if it doesn't bother you and you have enough space, you can do that. But it is going to weigh on you mentally. So I would challenge you to make those tough decisions. Look at the things you have and say, hey, I really haven't looked at this in a long time. Maybe I could let it go. And especially if you continue to buy bins because you're trying to find more space to put things, take one bin at a time and look at what's in there. I know it's really scary if you have stuff that's tucked away and you're like, but it's got this, that, or whatever in it. And sometimes you pull it out and you're like, oh my gosh, half of that bin was garbage. And I have resisted looking in it for 3 months because I was terrified what I was going to find. Generally, it's not as hard to deal with what's in these bins as we make it out to be, as we build it up in our minds. So once you just start to look, just take a peek. And if it is hard, that's fine. You do not have to deal with it. It is okay if something is challenging and you open it and you're like, nope, I'm not dealing with that today. I do not have the capacity. Fine. What you could do is you could write down what was in there and like pin it to it so you can see like, okay, I know what's in there. Someday when I'm in a better mood, I've got more capacity, I've got a little bit more space, it was an easy work week, I'm going to look in that bin. But today is not that day. But at least you make a plan for it and you're no longer living in that scared mindset of like avoidance, right? We want to just show up to our lives. This is our home. This is where we want to feel fully authentic and excited about being here and, recharged at the end of a long, stressful day. And if we are scared to look at what we have, if we're apprehensive about what we think we're going to find or we feel stuck, it's really hard to start feeling recharged and in a place of peace. So that's my challenge to you. I think if you're not using it, that's the clutter. And if you're putting it in bins to keep it where you can access it and you do actually use it, then you're just fine. And you're just organizing. And so that's the difference between, I think, real organizing and disguising clutter. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for the questions you submitted this week. I hope you liked the 4 that I chose. I did try to bring slightly different variations to what we've answered in the past, but I will leave links in the show notes for previous episodes that I have done that talk about, just other questions that have come up over and over and over again. I know you really like these question and answer ones, and I love them too, because I feel like I get to actually talk to you and feel like I'm really helping you out. All right. Make sure you join me next week. I'm going to be chatting with Amanda Jefferson. We're talking about digital clutter. So again, if that is a problem for you, she always has such amazing tips. They're super usable, bite-sized things you can implement right away. I love chatting with Amanda. She is actually, I've met her in real life. So she's actually a real life friend now that I've met through the podcast. So she's lovely. You're going to love it. You're going to get lots of information from her. So make sure you tune in next week. And then if you want more show notes or more information, make sure you head to wannabeclutterfree.com/275. I actually just updated the website a couple weeks ago and I love the new look. I would also love to know what you think of it. So check it out, leave me a comment there, or you can also leave a comment and a review on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. All right, see you around. Cheers.